Alright, if you just joined us, you're still on to Enterprise Morning, reaching you from Enterprise Television. Let's get to our main conversation for today. Governor Siminalayi Fubara of Rivers has inaugurated a 7-member panel to investigate killings and destruction of property at some local government secretariats in the state.
Fubara inaugurated the panel on Tuesday at the Executive Chamber of the Government House in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital.
The Rivers governor said his administration will not allow what he called ill-guided youth and sponsored political talks to turn the state into a theater of violence without consequences.
Very true. Fubara asked the panel to identify the underlying causes of violence and individuals responsible for the attacks in local government secretariats in the state.
The panel will be chaired by Ibi Wengi, Rosalind Menakiri, George. Other members are Inyengi Brown, Secretary, Uzo Ikenga, Councillor Felicia Nwoke, Blessing Didia, Samuel Egbe, and the Venerable Alex Osifo.
The panel is expected to submit its report within a month on Monday. Hoodlums raised sections of 3 local government area secretariats in Rivers, Emoha, Eleme, and Ikwere to prevent the elected officials from resuming their duties.
5 people were reportedly killed during the violence that occurred at some local government secretariats on Saturday. The Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission conducted elections into 23 chairmanship and 319 councillorship seats. That's what we have for this morning. Let's get to have a conversation today. And of course, to do that, we have joining us from Uyo in Akwa Ibom State, Barrister Augustine Enefiok Udo. He is the chairman of the Nigerian Bar Association, NBA Uyo branch. Good morning to you, Barrister.
Good morning, Barrister.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen in the studio.
Thank you so very much. And also to further have this conversation and, of course, fleshing that out, we have right here with us in the studios, Barrister Fans Ofeli, Barrister Law, Public Affairs Analyst. Good morning to you, Barrister.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. All right, so let's get into the crux of the matter here. And I'd love to start with you, Barrister Augustine Enefiok. He's often saying, he who pays the piper calls the tune. Of course, there we have it, the fact happening in Rivers State. What is your submission with what is happening right there? Of course, it's a neighboring state.
Yes, thank you very much. Democracy has always been a people's-oriented exercise. And once again, the people of Rivers State were to engage democratic processes for election of local government chairmen and, of course, of councillors. But what is unfortunate about that situation was that it wasn't supposed to be riotous or rancorous. It was supposed to be a people's-oriented thing where members of the different political parties were to choose candidates of their choice. And it could have been done seamlessly by understanding and by agreement and by the choices they want. But what we saw was a party exchange, and that affected the masses basically by their choices. What we don't appreciate right now is that it became violent, and I understand that there have been a lot of destruction of some local government areas, and that violence, violence is not a permissible act by masses. And so we would appreciate that the governor, as the chief security officer, is trying as much as possible to restore peace in the state. If the elections have taken place, and you have people that are disgruntled about it, I think there are fully provided institutions where people can ventilate their grievances. Violence definitely is not one of those choices. And I think it is appropriate and apt that the parliament be set up at least to curb and install peace and see how peace normalcy can return the local government administration in Rivers State to thrive.
All right, yes. So I truly understand the importance of setting up a panel to look into this particular case. Governor Fubara granted an interview on one of the national media stations, and he said clearly that everyone in Nigeria understands where the problem is coming from. So why should we set up a panel, or why should River State set up a panel when it knows where the whole problem is coming from?
Well, you see, it is one thing for the government to say he knows, but you see, the problem is that setting up the panel is actually the most objective thing to do. Because knowledge is not a unified thing for everybody to appreciate. If the governor says he knows and still sets up the panel, it means he just wants to have an objective view of the people's opinion. Because the proper thing to do is actually what the governor is doing. But even though he says he knows, that is very subjective. Because you can't apportionately blame unless you put a structure in place to be able to determine by facts, by evidence, and by decision making who were the perpetrators. It's okay for the governor to set up a panel, but I think it may not be appropriate for the governor to say he knows. But he has done the proper thing that a leader should do by installing a panel which can now democratically or judiciously investigate and look at the issue one after the other. The governor's knowledge notwithstanding.
All right, beautiful.
Okay, thank you. Talking about the panel and the people that have been picked to actually skyrocket this investigation, let's talk about the potential challenges the panel might face in identifying the individuals responsible, especially considering the involvement of possible political factions, or should I say powerful figures?
Yes, definitely. A panel of this nature will have to unravel the remote and immediate causes of that inferno. Because for me, it was like stifling democracy. You know, when people have gone to the polls and they have emerged winners, anyone who tried to, you know, depossess them of that mandate is actually committing an offense against the state and against the people. So the panel will have to contend with so many issues of identity of these persons, issues of you know, their sponsors, you know, issues of that relates to the whole genesis of the matter itself and all that. While I also think that it's not really difficult to spot them out, because even they tried to stop the election too on that day. Even though it was largely peaceful, in some areas they came out to stop the election because they didn't want the election to go on. Because police was not even there. I mean, there was no security and all that. It went well, but this faction tried to stop the election. So it's easy. You can actually spot them, those who are, especially the followers of Wike in that state. They are the ones who contrived it. Let's not even go far. Journalists will say allegedly. Even lawyers will say allegedly. But that's fine. I think the constitution of that panel is strategic, is critical, so that they will not begin to say those, if the governor go ahead now and pick people, they will say it's witch hunting, or they will use so many issues to describe it. But a panel will give a far-reaching, you know, avenue for them to actually, because when you are considering a panel of this nature, you are going to invite the security of that secretariat. You understand? Those who were there before these people came, how they identified themselves, what they did there. You understand? Because a serious offense was committed that day. One, arson is a serious offense. Okay, under our law, arson is a serious offense. Then, trying to take over the mandate or trying to dispossess people of their mandates is economic sabotage. You are sabotaging democracy and the process itself. So there are a lot of offenses that were committed on that day. And same cannot just be swept under the carpet or just overlook it. If the governor overlook this, it's going to create more problem for him in the future. So this panel is critical. Get them to work. Let them look into and make their recommendation to the governor and their reports to the governor, so that even if they want to prosecute them, they can have, during the panel hearing and all that, they will have enough evidence for which, they can petition them or hand them over to the police for prosecution.
Okay, Barrister Evans, you made a strategic comment saying if this is not addressed, it could actually repeat itself in the future.
Yes.
Now, let's look at it, the long-term implication when it comes to state governance and security. If it's not addressed, let's look at it from that angle.
State governance and security. Yeah, I mean, the essence of government is security of lives and properties, the security of and the welfare of the people. Now, it is the responsibility of the governor of that state. It does not matter whether it's being fought by an outgoing governor or he's being trailed by this it does not matter. His primary responsibility is to provide security and welfare for the people of that state. If he's unable to do that, a state of emergency will be declared and it will be removed. You understand? So that objective is critical. Now, setting up this panel is part of exercising that power under the law to secure the people and to provide their welfare. So that's why I commend him for setting up that panel. When they are done with their report, they will send to the police and all law enforcement agencies and all that. And you can see the irony of the whole thing. It was when the people went in and started breaking things after the elections, after the swearing in, that the president now called and said police should be deployed to quell the crisis, and all that. So, by and large, that state is at the point where any offender or anyone who is found, committing an offense must be dealt with seriously. Right. There should be no pardon, no mercy, because the level of shenanigans we've seen in that state, being spearheaded by Wike and his cohort, is one that should not repeat itself in any other state. All right.
But Augustine, let's, while we of course await the results of the panel set up by Siminalayi Fubara, let's look at our democratic process. The same day the local government election was going on in Rivers State was the same day it was equally going on in your state, Akwa Ibom. Satisfactorily, just like the APP won all the seats, all the local government except one, which of course went to AA. The PDP in Akwa Ibom State swept everything in its entirety. But of course, there was no issue of disturbance in Akwa Ibom State. What do you think could be the reason why Rivers State is a different case altogether? And what do you think they can learn from Akwa Ibom State?
There is an international standard that Akwa Ibom State has set, and that toga is that Akwa Ibom State is one of the most peaceful states in Nigeria presently. Now, the peace is as a result of the governor's plan of making everybody people-oriented in their thinking and reasoning. The governor's plan for Akwa Ibom State is across party lines. The partisanship and the democratic processes are not party-driven, they are people-driven. The governor has mentioned severally that he is the governor of the Akwa Ibom State, not a governor of the PDP or the APC or so. And so when he tries to bring development, democratic development, it cuts across party lines. And every Akwa is the beneficiary of our democracy. And so we don't have that room for a feud of the riots. Even in an election like this, people from other political parties still came out to vote, but the majority took the day, and there was no rancor. I can recall vividly when the End Bad Governance protests were to be carried out across the country. You could take stock of the states where these riots took place and the states where the riots did not take place. And in Akwa Ibom State, I can proudly tell you that the riots didn't take place in Akwa Ibom State because the youths of Akwa Ibom State came to an agreement that it is better we team up together to see how we can overcome and support the economic policies of the state to alleviate their sufferings, rather than take riots into the streets. Don't forget that some of these riots have a divergent opinion. Some people riot unconstitutionally by veering into shops, to loot, veering into markets to cut properties. So you see sometimes when a state has a policy, a strategy that is all embracing, but people oriented, you won't have such a situation happening in River State in Akwa Ibom. Akwa Ibom State has a complete people oriented policy where we can sit together across party lines and discuss issues, and they are mutually beneficial. There is no plan or program of the state government today that does not capture every other person. Just recently, when the youth of the Akwa Ibom State gathered together to appreciate the governor for having carried them along, he announced a lot of plans and schemes for the youths. And he did mention that everything he was doing was going to involve all the youths in the state, whether you are a PDP or not. So you see, these are some of the reasons why a peaceful state like this can have a seamless kind of election. And then another thing is perhaps the transition flow or the interchange of government power, when it is done seamlessly with an understanding of the predecessor and the successor on what the issues of the state are and how the state should be governed and continue, and the successor comes in and also promotes, because government, they continue.
Yes, because I actually wanted to ask you. Yes, because I actually wanted to ask you on the godfatherism thing. Of course, there's no denying the fact that it still exists in Akwa Ibom State. Although Emmanuel, of course, handed it over to Omoeno. But of course, you say it was smoothly done without feud and rancor.
The relationship was seamless. Because when you are being chosen or we are being accepted by the people as a leader to come on board, what you look at should be what should be the best plan for the people as laid down by your predecessor, and not to come and begin to perpetrate a plan or a project that is not seamless. It is easy to understand leadership from the standpoint of service and not leadership from the standpoint of personal interest. What you are seeing in the Akwa Ibom State in terms of leadership change is because the leaders themselves have decided to share their personal interests and consider the interest of the people first. That becomes their priority concern and not their personal interest. If you do a personal interest affair, it will conflict with the interest of the people. So you see, that is why Akwa Ibom has a peaceful transition in terms of leadership. The predecessor and the successor are in tandem with what should be the governing principles, the governing guidelines, and the policies that can endure the people. So that is why we have a seamless transition, a seamless electionary process. It was peaceful. And at the end of the day, we all sat at the same table and said, hey, we've taken our decisions as Democrats, and let's move on. And you will see whoever is sitting at the transition chamber in whatever local government will have nothing but to carry everybody along across party lines.
Be beautiful.
So I want family in my family.
Thank you. Barrister Everton, we know the power of political influence, more especially in our country, Nigeria. Now, how can the state government ensure accountability without allowing political influence to distort the investigation?
Well, that is why he's setting up a panel. He's going to take a back seat and the panel will do the job. Okay? Now, it is in the interest of the panel and for the state to be objective in that investigation.
I know these panels, they are humans.
Yes.
They are, you can see women among them. Can't we see, knowing the person involved, allegedly, let me use the word allegedly, can there be threats, and at this point, the investigation will be distorted at some point?
Of course, there will be threats. Wiki might call them and say, we'll put fire in their houses and all that. He might do that. But you see, they have been given an assignment by the governor of the state to discharge. And that assignment must be discharged. You understand? They could borrow a leave from the NSAS panel that happened in Lagos State. Well, Lagos State have consulted it. Okay? Gave them free hand to do the job. And when they finished the job, they indicted Lagos State government. Okay? The more reason why it was never implemented the recommendations. Okay, so those persons, I believe they understand the objective of the panel. Of course, they are going to take an oath to that effect. Oath of uprightness, of secrecy, there are a lot of oaths you take on that, which you hold that allegiance and commitment to the state. Yes, and that's why you are there in the first place. So I believe they will do the job. Even if there are going to be influences from here and there, they will do the job because it's for the advancement of the state and the security and peace of that state. So whether Wike is threatening or not, or whether he's making, he wants to bring the heaven down, should not perturb them. They should. There will be influences, but I believe they will do the right thing, and they will come up with their reports, and the governor should implement the report and do exactly what should be done according to law. That is the foundation. This is also to send messages to other states where you have infighting between a godfather and a godson and the rest of that. We must minimize the influence of outgoing governors on their successors. We must. It's not all the time that people will spread themselves when their term of office have constitutionally expired by fruition of time. Then they will now hang over, use some kind of politics we don't understand to hold the state down, to determine what happened every time and all that. It's not the right thing to do. Anyone who believes in democracy and who believes in the progress of society should not, at the end of his term, reenact himself in the body and soul of another person. But that's exactly what he is trying to do, so that Fubara will become an image. Then Wike will not be the one, will not be the spirit that will possess him in the governance of that state. That is not democracy. Democracy is power to the people. So if the people don't have this power, and if the people are, are made to suffer as a result of the infighting of politicians, it means that the politicians themselves don't believe in democracy.
All right. So, Barrister Augustine, just before we drop our anchor for today, I'd love to ask you, speak to us from your area of forte, constitutionally, that is. There have been divergent views on this particular case. The pro-Wike people have come up to cry and the desire for a state of emergency in Rivers State. Speak to us, what constitutes a state of emergency? And is this case in question good enough for a declaration of state of emergency?
Well, a state of emergency can at best be described as a state where there is complete breakdown of law and order, where the citizenry and the infrastructure of the policies of the structure of the state and its operational base is completely at a full stop. Where there is rancor, there's breakdown of law and order, and there's absence of peace, you can't declare a state of emergency. Now, in River State, we have a governor, and he is the chief security officer of the state at the moment. And the structures of the state are still functional. The judicial process is also functional. What was the challenge was the police, and the concern of the police in not carrying out constitutional powers as established by law to maintain law and order, for which the Nigerian Bar Association's president spoke against, and for which the branches of River State also spoke against, calling on the police to take up their responsibility. Now, it is only the duty of the governor of the state that it is the job of the governor to pronounce such a state of emergency if need be. And of course, the state of emergency cannot just be pronounced by reason of the sectoral difficulty, where there is a remedy provided. It is when there is absolutely no remedy, when there is complete loss of reconciliation, when there is a comprehensive failure of the system, that we can talk about the state of emergency, and it should be declared by the one who is in charge, who has fully exercised all aspects of his authority to no good effect. That is when you can talk about the state of emergency, when nothing is working. But can we say that nothing is working in River State? I doubt we can say that. because already there's a machinery in place for reconciliation, for adjudication, for tracking down those who were caught in the door of this violence. And so it is a step taken by the leader, the president, the governor, Fubara, to spend the time. They cannot be, we can't see that from here as a breakdown of law and order that can generate a state of emergency. That is what I can see from here. There is no state of emergency necessitated by what Wike is saying. Rather, Wike is perhaps trying to ventilate what could have been his personal interest, which never have fallen to his favor. But that is democracy. Democracy is when the people speak. And when the people speak, their decisions should be accepted and respected. And it should not generate any kind of violence. Because violence is what causes the breakdown of law and order. But in this case, I must say that Rivers State has been able to build some level of protective cover around the democratic process, and I think that's what the government is trying to do. Sue for peace, and that is what this tribunal, I believe, will also justify. So I don't think I accept the view from which that the state of emergency should be declared, because normalcy is still happening in Port Harcourt, and people still have belief in the democratic process as it's currently constituted.
Okay.
All right, but Stefan, is it ever possible to appeal a panel like this, especially for people who might not accept the results at the end of the day?
That's important.
Yes, it's a panel of inquiry. You understand? So, I mean, each decision, you cannot appeal it to any court, because a panel of inquiry like this is not a statutory panel of inquiry.
Okay.
It's not statutory. What I mean by statutory is that if you look at those that are statutory, okay, like which one now should I use as an example? There are some panels that are statutory, okay, like is it the Bureau of Public Complaint or let's say tax tribunal, okay, and let's say some other inquiry statutory. Those ones you can have appeal. Some of them appeal is to the Court of Appeal. Okay. Some of them appeal is to a court. So it's stated in the extant law that established that statutory panel of inquiry where appeal will lie at. You understand? But this one is just a state, a panel organized by a state. So if the outcomes are not proper, what will happen is to engage the security agencies to invite those whom they have been indicted and then prosecute them or petition them. I mean, those who instigated the violence, okay, who they set up they set fire in the structures and all that, and there are videos. Some faces are seen, okay. So if in the absence of an inquiry like this, what the state would have done is to engage the security agencies to go arrest them and prosecute them. That's what the state would have done. But doing an inquiry like this will open up more vistas. People will make confessional statements. Sometimes they will give evidence that will lead to the root cause of the situation. So this is better, really, so that at the end of the day, they will not say they are chanting who and who. So the information contrived from here as matter of report can be used extensively to determine the case further, even if they want to prosecute. That report will also assist the police, will assist the security agencies to do what they ought to do.
All right, that's just about the time we have. Choma Fubara said, unfortunately, he is begging for peace. That all the things he's been doing in the state in the last 1.5 years, that is not seen because of all of this feud and fracas.
Whenever you say Fubara, the next time
it's crisis, and we can, unfortunately. Well, that's about the size of our market today. I'd love to say thank you so very much, Barrister Augustine and Nephew Udo. Thank you so very much. Thank you very much. My pleasure. Thank you. I hope whenever we do call you, give us your time.
Okay. I shall will. Second.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Asifin.
Thank you.
Thank you as always. All right, people, this is just about the size of our package once more. We'd love to say thank you to you. Most importantly, you've watched, you've streamed, wherever you've done that around the world. We truly do appreciate you and will never take you for granted. But please do well to see us. Visit us whenever you want to. You can always find us at enterprisetvnews.com. You may also like, comment respectfully, and follow us on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV7. I am Henry Ikwebike.
And I'm Choma.
On behalf of the Backroom Boys, I'd love to say thank you once more, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.